Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got all of our Locked On NHL hosts here to recap the action from Tuesday. But we're going to kick things off with the Panthers, whose win streak is now at 11 after another win on the road and last night's best performance.
The best performance.
Hold up.
The Panthers are on a serious win streak right now. They're now up to 11 games after taking down the Islanders in New York. Locked On Panthers has the keys to the Florida hot streak and another road win for the Cats.
Many thought when the Florida Panthers started 4-4-4 on the road that they couldn't find a way to win. But with tonight's win, they now set a franchise record in road wins with 23 on the season. What is up, guys? This is Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And once again, the Florida Panthers, with their 3-2 win over the New York Islanders in their first and only visit to UBS Arena, get a franchise record in road wins with 23 on the season. And now their winning streak goes to 11 games for this Florida Panthers team as they've pulled away from in the race for the number one seed in the Eastern Conference and now tie the Colorado Avalanche for the most points in the NHL with 116. Still a little bit to play for to get the President's Trophy for the top overall seed in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But Alexander Barkov got 3 goals in this one, now has surpassed his previous career high in goals. His previous career high was 35 in the 2018-2019 season, getting a hat trick for the Florida Panthers. Jonathan Huberdeau assisted on all 3 of them for the captain as well. And now Huberdeau has 111 points on the season. Now leading the race for the Art Ross with 111 points, one over Connor McDavid with 6 games remaining in the season. So incredible season that Jonathan Huberdeau is continuing to have. So to listen to my recap of this 3-2 overtime win over the New York Islanders, make sure to listen to my latest episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your first listen of the day.
The Islanders pushed the game to overtime against the best team in the East, and Locked On Islanders says the effort gives New York fans at least something to be happy about if they couldn't get the win.
Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Islanders fall to the Florida Panthers 3-2 in overtime. Tough loss because Ilya Sorokin played extremely well, and the Islanders went toe-to-toe with the best team in the Eastern Conference for more than 60 minutes and stayed in this game, mostly because of Sorokin, but also because of a determined effort by several other players. The problem, again, some defensive breakdowns. Islanders trying to hold on to that 2-1 lead, and they just couldn't do it. Too much Alexander Barkov. He had all 3 goals for the Panthers, and the Islanders, on the tying goal, just standing around in their own zone, watching Barkov get to the loose puck and beating Sorokin. And then in the overtime, Barkov's speed just a little too much for the Islanders' defense. But at least this team hasn't quit, and they gave a very good effort even after being eliminated from the playoffs. For more, listen to the Locked On Islanders podcast with me, Gil Martin, wherever you get podcasts.
The Wild won on the road to stay hot, headed into the home stretch of the regular season, while the Canadiens showed where they need to improve most in the loss. Locked On Wild goes over the win, while Locked On Canadiens points out the to-do list for Montreal this offseason.
And tonight, Kevin Fiala outscored the Canadiens by himself. Hey everybody, Seth Topol, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 2-0 win for the Minnesota Wild against the Montreal Canadiens. Some historical things happening in this game. Kevin Fiala hitting the 30-goal mark with a power play goal to start the scoring, giving the Wild 3 players with 30 goals on the season for the first time in franchise history. Fiala also moving up the leaderboard in terms of total points in a season with 75. Matt Boldy picking up goal number 15 on the season as well, as Cam Talbot records the shutout. The Wild now 1 win away from tying their franchise record for wins in a season. And for Cam Talbot, 11-0-3 in his last 15 appearances, which includes 14 starts, continuing to give this team some great goaltending down the stretch as the Wild pull ahead for now of the St. Louis Blues for second in the Central Division. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to podcasts.
Another loss highlights all the things the Canadiens need to do in the off season. Hi everyone, my name is Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens, and the Habs have just been shut out against the Minnesota Wild. Now, this isn't something that is as dire as it was the last time these two teams played. The Canadiens got lit up. This time around, the score was a little bit more even, but the Canadiens still have not scored a goal for Carey Price since Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So he's been back for 2 games, and you count that game. The Canadiens have not scored for him at all. He himself did not play badly. In fact, he was pretty good. The team as a whole, the first period was, it was full of mistakes, but they managed to tighten things up. But ultimately, the Wild were more successful, even though they weren't able to score on a 5-on-3, but don't even get me started on that. Basically, this loss just highlights how much the Canadiens have to do in the offseason in terms of moving out cap space and people who don't fit on this team, as well as bringing in players and also revamping their coaching staff. Martin St. Louis will have an opportunity, if he agrees to come back, to hire his own assistants, and the Canadiens really need help on all fronts. It's going to be part of the rebuild, so it's not going to be an instantaneous change, but they do have a lot of work to do. So for more on this, check out Locked On Canadiens. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube.
The Red Wings are out of the playoffs, but beat the defending champions on the road last night. Nonetheless, the hosts of Locked On Red Wings take you through that recap.
The Detroit Red Wings play probably their best game in a while, beating division rivals Tampa Bay Lightning in the final matchup of the season, 4-3 at Amalie Arena. And they did so without their captain, Dylan Larkin. Scotty, what did we see out of this game, man?
It was physical, right? Physical brand of hockey, and it was really fun. It was a really fun game to watch. A lot of noteworthy players had really good games. We've been talking a lot on the show the last, I guess you could go back the last month or so, and kind of talked about how the end of the season, maybe it's not as interesting as it was earlier on. But this game certainly does not fit that bill. This was a fun game to watch all around. Grice looked really good, faced a lot of shots as we're accustomed to. Verana, obviously, incredible game, and all around just a really, really fun brand of hockey, fun game to watch, physical game.
And of course, Verana becomes tied for the fastest player in Red Wings history to reach 20 goals. Only needing, I think, 33 games to do so. And Scotty, you and I are going to talk about the whole game, break down the whole thing tonight on Lockdown Red Wings.
Coming up, the Kings and the Bruins win on the road. This is Locked On Now NHL. This edition of Locked On Now is brought to you by Bet Online, the #1 spot for all of your online sports gambling needs, especially now with baseball being back and, of course, the NBA playoffs. Some of the most recent injuries may affect some of those numbers. So you want to check it out early and often. Just head over to betonline.net. Welcome back to Locked On Now NHL. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. We're going to continue our look around the league with our Locked On local experts.
Let's go around the league.
The Bruins were not at full strength for their trip to St. Louis, but they still picked up a road win in overtime. Locked On Bruins tells you how Boston got it done.
The Boston Bruins were without some key players in tonight's game against the St. Louis Blues, but they emerged victorious thanks to an overtime game winner from Charlie McAvoy. This is Ian McLaren of Locked On Boston Bruins, and they had no Linus Ullmark, no Hampus Lindholm, no David Pastrnak, no Jesper Froden, but the Bruins went into St. Louis, ended the Blues' lengthy winning streak, and pulled to within 1 point of the Tampa Bay Lightning for third place in the Atlantic Division, and extending their lead over the Washington Capitals for the first wild card spot. A great win for the Boston Bruins here as they look to build some momentum towards the playoffs and, most importantly, get healthy. They'll be without these players for Thursday's game against the Penguins, but for now, on this 2-game road trip, picking up the win over the St. Louis Blues, which is pretty huge. Their first visit to St. Louis since Game 6 of the 2019 Stanley Cup Final. Again, check out Locked On Boston Bruins. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and get all the latest on the black and gold on the Locked On Podcast Network.
The Calgary Flames officially in the playoffs, but they did not look good last night against Nashville. The most important time of the season is just around the corner. Locked On Flames wants to make sure Calgary is playing like a team ready to win in the postseason.
What is up, everyone? It's Jess Belmosto from Locked On Flames, and what a disappointing performance from the Flames tonight. Overall, they were able to force it to the shootout, but unfortunately, Mangiapane was the only one scoring tonight, and I understand it's the second half of a back-to-back in, late in the season, so can't read too much into it, but if that's how the Flames are going to perform, if they face the Predators in the first round, I don't want to see the Predators. They just snapped their 7-game win streak against a team that is obviously highly competitive, but it's ultimately a game they should have won. Their magic number to clinch the Pacific Division is, of course, down to 1 now. So we will have to see if that's doable the next game, along with Matthew Tkachuk getting 1 more point to get that century mark.
The Kings are in the thick of the playoff race out west and picked up 2 big points not too far from home in Anaheim. Locked On Kings and Ducks both give credit to Jonathan Quick and net for the LA win.
The Los Angeles Kings picked up 2 more crucial points in a win over the Anaheim Ducks. This game had everything. It had timely goals, questions about what goaltender interference is, and most importantly, a vintage performance from Jonathan Quick in net. He was fantastic when the team needed him. He stopped 29 of 30 shots, including 16 of 17 in a great second period showing from the veteran netminder. The only goal against came from Adam Henrique, who split the defense on a Ducks power play, so whatever. With the win, the Kings put a little more space between themselves, Vegas, and the surprisingly surging Vancouver Canucks in the standings. Check out the next episode of Locked On Los Angeles Kings to keep up with the team. Every point counts in these final games.
Well, the Ducks tried their hardest to win this game, but Jonathan Quick was on his game tonight. Hi, everyone. Jason J.D. Hernandez from Locked On Anaheim Ducks. As the Kings were victorious here at Honda Center, 2-1. As you can hear, the Kings fans super rowdy here as they were victorious. This game meant much more to the Kings as they are now 5 points up on the Pacific Division. The Ducks tried everything to get past Jonathan Quick in the second period, but to no avail. Adam Henrique did get a goal in this game. Phil Deneau got the game-winning goal. But again, this game meant much more to the Kings. You can hear them. They're just going to keep going all night. So I'll just say, tune in to tomorrow's Locked On Ducks for more on this thrilling game here at the Honda Center.
The Sharks' 10-game losing streak finally over. San Jose beat Columbus at home, and Locked On Sharks tells you how the Sharks managed to get a long-awaited win.
The streak is finally over. I'm JD Young of Locked On Sharks, and these Sharks break their 10-game losing streak by winning 3-2 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. A game where the Young Guns drove the bus tonight. Scott Reedy, rookie, scores 2 goals. Rudolph Balcer gets a goal. Thomas Bordeleau continues to prove why he belongs in the NHL. And, just nice to see that it's not just Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl and the veterans having to kind of drive the way. Kaapo Kähkönen gets his first win as a Shark finally. And it was, like I said, it was good to see the Sharks young guys being the engine to tonight's game. It did get a little hairy in the third period as Columbus did score 2 goals to make it interesting, but Sharks were able to put it away and, get a much deserved win after losing 10 straight. So we'll break down tonight's game, talk about the Sharks signing of Strauss-Mann, and get ready for Gushin and Larocque joining the Barracuda. So all that and more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Sharks, wherever you get podcasts, and of course, subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Now NHL. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast as well. I'm CANADIENS. This has been Locked On Now.